us now for more is Carlo Capacillo, stockbroker at AP Securities Inc. Good to see you again, Carlo. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kathy, for having me.
Okay, so how are you advising clients then ahead of the BSP decision? Assuming that they do cut.
If they do cut, well, everyone is pricing it in already.
Are you as well?
Yes, I am as well. Personally, so we've been looking at it in a way that it's not isolated from the U.S. And right now, if we cut rates, the differential between the U.S. rates and Philippine rates would be just 50 basis points from a traditional, at least 100 basis points. So you give enough incentive for investors to take risks with the Philippine peso. So how we see it is the BSP lowering rates is good for long-term investors, but not for short-term traders.
How come?
So if you lower the rates, of course we're looking at those rates spurring economic activity, and we're trying to see GDP pull up to the higher end of the target of 6.5%. So it's something that you have to wait a little longer to trickle in. But for the short-term investors, you have a smaller differential from the U.S. and you might see a little movement from the Philippines going back if there's not enough incentive for the investors.
Okay, so there could be a way to skirt this, if you will, or maybe even game it. What are you then recommending for those who have held onto interest rate sensitive stocks like banks, property, because those will be impacted by the narrowing of the interest rate differential that we hadn't seen, coming down from 100 to 50 basis points.
Yeah, well, we've seen a lot of improvement in the property sector, but it's not as, if you would look back, we were at 7,000 when the rates were between 4 to 5%. So, and property index was much higher then. So I believe or I am hoping we go to that direction now. And we've seen the movements from Ayala Land, even Mega World that hasn't been moving much for the past year started to gain some traction. So we're already seeing it. And even the REITs now, of course, compared to their counterparts, look more attractive. So we're seeing a few more pushes for the property sector.
So that means to be more nuanced in the property sector and get into REITs?
Yes.
Okay, what about for banks then, given what we've seen for the first half in terms of earnings, in terms of net interest margins and credit costs?
Yes. For banks, before it was easy to say that their income is directly correlated, but now they have so much things going on for them. So it's not as easy to say that, okay, you lower the rates, their net interest margins move this way. It's not as easy to say that. But maybe on the loan sector, which is really a big part of the bank income, then we can see growth there, given, again, the property sector surging. So I believe there's also a lot of upside in the banks.
So which ones then?
I would still go for property first, only because they've been lagging for the longest time. The banks have moved relatively faster this year. So there's more upside, to say the least, in the property and then banks.
Okay, so what now happens to the dividend plays? Because for the most part of the uncertainty that we've seen in the last 7-8 months, most of the stockbrokers out there said, just get into the dividend plays because it's going to give you money back anyway.
Well, what we've learned, all of us have learned, is to be more patient given the post-pandemic scenario. And the average yield of the PSE is the highest level as it has been for the last 10 years. So we've been telling them dividends are actually a good play. So people are not as active trading. Like personally, I've been recommending Globe, and they say that that's very slow. But you don't want to play hero trading all the time. I said, like Globe now is in the lower end, maybe 1,600 with a stable 100 peso dividend. Right? So looking at that angle, I told them, well, you can sit on this one. You get your dividends better than any other rates that you would get. And you still have the pending GCash IPO if it comes in play. So you don't see a lot of investors dumping the stock just because that GCash IPO is still in play. So that's where we're playing it right now.
Which brings us to the e-gambling ecosystem, because there's been a delinking by the Bangko Sentral amongst the e-wallets. In order to prevent people from just playing all they want on gambling platforms. But I see that AP Securities has put on a hold for DigiPlus, even as it got promoted, so to speak, to the PSCI index at the expense of Bloomberry, which you now have buy on.
Yes.
What explains that?
So we usually do the opposite every time there's a rebalancing. So let's say if DigiPlus was going into the index, So we would say that that's the time you step away from DigiPlus because you have to take profits come the time it's included in the index, and we have to start investing on the one that's taken out. Only because if some people would understand, uh, flows is more important than fundamentals, right? And as a market trader, you make money on flows, on money flows than fundamentals in the short run. So now we've been thinking, okay, so Bloomberg is taken out. We don't expect a lot of outflows. We look back at the fundamentals. They're now reinvesting on e-gaming. And of course, the risk of regulatory risk is something else. But putting that aside, the business is doing good. So we're seeing a lot more upside for Bloom now than before. For DigiPlus, it's really hard to put a value on it yet. I mean, there's the range of valuations for DigiPlus is really huge, and given the volatility that we've seen, particularly in the last 4 weeks, it's not for a lot of people. That's what we can say, and then there's a lot of headwinds going on. Although what's good to see is that they've also showed interest expanding in, I think, in Africa, in Brazil, in the business perspective. That's really nice. So we're hopeful that those things would actually work for a Filipino company.
All right, we'll leave it at that, and I'm going to take home that phrase, flows, money flows, very important. Thanks so much.
Thank
Carlo
you.
Capacillo, AP Securities, joining us.